I'm gonna turn this over to my boss, whose name is Randy. Basically, we did bring an item to the City Commission on Monday of last week to discuss, to have some period of time to explore baseball. And I'm going to ask Randy and the mayor to go through that. And Mayor, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And I'm going to turn it over to you and let you kind of guide us through this.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have what I believe is a generational opportunity. And obviously with an opportunity comes challenges and problems and issues and things that we need to look at wisely. But we have the opportunity to have a minor league baseball team in our city, which puts us in rare company. There's 180 of these in the country. They have a positive economic impact, according to the economic study that maybe you've seen, and Dory will present, almost a $6 million a year positive economic impact per year. And not to mention, I think it creates a wonderful entertainment form in the spring, summer months in our region, in our area that fits in Winter Park. Now that being said, the devil is always in the details. So if this was a wedding, we have a bride. I think we have a rabbi, priest, officiant. We have a potential groom or two couple grooms, but we don't have the dowry completely put to bed yet. So obviously that's where one of the devils in the details are. So there are several sites in our city that would accommodate a minor league baseball park, and we're talking about a stadium between 2,500 and 3,500 seats. So think obviously of the great ballparks in our country that fit into neighborhoods such as Fenway Park and Wrigley Field and even Yankee Stadium, and you realize that even large stadiums in those cases, and this wouldn't certainly be that size, could be a great amenity. In addition, it obviously could expand our park space, which I think is a strong positive. There are three basically, I guess I would say, challenges to wrestle with, but the issue that I want you all to wrestle with today after I turn the mic to Randy is this a good idea or not? Is this too big for our city? Is it too small for our city? Does it make sense for us to do something like this? Does it fit within the kind of economic development we're trying to bring to our region and our city? And you may say, you know, it doesn't. And that's what we really need to hear. The three I think I would suggest are the major deal points that we need to consider. Obviously, one is site. And let me say, in any situation, this would be a partnership opportunity with potentially numerous individuals. There is no one site in Winter Park that we could go and we don't have all of the resources to be able to go out and just build the thing ourselves. So that isn't something that we would propose. It would be done in partnership. So site is obviously one of those. And the key issue for site to me is done correctly. I think this could spawn other economic development. That would be, as has been seen, especially in other southeastern cities, many minor league parks are considered parks in their communities and thus have had other great benefits from an economic development standpoint and other types of multi-specialty, multi-use developments, which is, I think, a potential, a real pull for our city. The second thing, obviously, is the actual funding of the stadium, which, you know, I would say in any calculation, we have probably an opportunity through numerous channels of probably having up to half the price right now in hand. It's the other half that will separate us from whether we get this done economically or not. And then last but not least is whatever agreement that we would have in place with the ownership team that has expressed interest in being in our city. That challenge is important only because I think that creates some sort of an additional return on investment on the actual stadium costs. With that, Randy, Dory have been working diligently over the last week or so, couple weeks here as this has come up. We want to explore this opportunity with you. We realize that you all practice not just in Winter Park, but throughout Central Florida and other places. And ultimately, I would like to hear ultimately if you think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a good overview. We're going to go through some of those options, some of the site options, and talk about them, because each one brings its own opportunities and its own challenges. But as the mayor said, you know, we would not only like to hear from you whether you think it's a good idea or not, but you know, we'd like for each of you to put a couple $1 million in to help get this done.
Election plate will be.
Right, we're not leaving here until we have enough money to fund the stadium. But I'm going to step up to the podium and just walk you through the sites real quick, and then we'll kind of narrow back down on each one and just go through some pros and cons of each site. But as you know, one of the potential partners, of course, is Rollins College, and this is their existing site, Harper Shepherd Field, which is right off of Orange Avenue, Denning, you know, sandwiched in there. I'm sure you've all seen it. It sits on, you know, approximately 6.5 acres here, I believe. And one of the obvious questions is, why can't we just use this stadium? One is it's undersized. I believe it seats somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 people. Of course, that could be expanded. The other thing you may not know is it faces the wrong direction. Baseball stadiums, especially professional baseball stadiums, typically face the northeast in orientation. This faces northwest. And so what you have is the sun setting over here every afternoon and the fans all bake in the sun, looking into the sun. So most stadiums have the home plate over on this side and center field on this side over here. So one of the first options we looked at, spent a lot of time on, was building the stadium at this location. And that is certainly still on the table. When we began this process, Rollins College was taking the lead. They were trying to raise the money for the stadium, and they had, at a recent board meeting, voted to step back and not be in the lead position on this. And you know, while this site's still on the table, it has its own challenges. If you build it here, parking is certainly a challenge. They have a small parking lot here. If you reorient the stadium, you're not going to get a whole lot more parking. So it's a big challenge. You probably need parking somewhere in the 600 to 1,000 car range for most games. And then, you know, there is, you know, with all professional sports, parking in other, you know, at other lots and walking is certainly expected when you go to a professional sporting event. So this is one of the locations. Another location has been talked about.
One quick question. You said 600 to 1,000 parking spots. That's a big range. Is there, and we said 25 to 3,500. Is that the range? 25 is like closer to 400? Right.
The number is one parking space for about every 3.2 seats or something like that. It's kind of the guideline that's considered out there. So
that helps.
But you don't have to have all that parking on site, is what I'm saying, you know, because people will park at a, you know, at an office building that's closed at night and that type of thing and walk over. So you don't have to have them all within the venue site. So another option that's been explored, this is the Martin Luther King Park. Some of you may know it as Lake Island Park. It was recently renamed. This is the Fairbanks along the south side here. Harper, it runs behind the Burger King, and the Mount Vernon is right here, and this is Denning on the right. That's Rollins softball field, and then the city has 3 multi-purpose playing fields that's used for soccer, lacrosse, football, youth sports primarily. And then of course the Civic Center is up on this corner on Morse. We've looked at several things, including, you know, what would it take to expand this park down to Fairbanks, you know, looking at acquiring those commercial businesses along there. Rollins College has acquired the bowling alley site that sits right here. They're looking to sell it, but at this time they don't have a buyer, and so the city may be interested in acquiring that, and that could open up some additional possibilities for this site. The challenge, obviously, of expanding all the way to Fairbanks would be, if you don't have willing sellers, then you may be in an eminent domain situation, and our city has not traditionally used that approach to acquire property. So this site, the advantages of this site, the city already owns this. Rollins has indicated in the past they'd be willing to move the softball stadium. If the baseball stadium went here, they'd move it over to the Harper Shepherd Field site, and they would be a tenant in the new ballpark, along with the minor league team. The disadvantage of this site would be that at least one of these youth multipurpose fields would go away. Depending on how we handle parking, it's possible that, you might take them all away for game purposes, and they may only be practice fields, and we would park on those fields on game days. It's about 70 nights a year for home games. So you ask, where would these fields go to? I'll show you in a moment, but we have a site over between Lee Road and Monroe that used to be a tree farm. It hasn't been a tree farm for probably 7, 8, 9 years at this point. All the trees have been harvested out of there that were potentially, movable. So we have about 13 acres over off of Lee Road that is in our long range, in our 5-year capital plan to convert that to youth recreation fields. So these fields could be relocated to that location.
How large is that site, Randy? About 15 or 16 acres?
The former tree farm?
No, the existing MLK park. In terms of the area you'd be taking up where the sports fields are.
John, do you know what the overall park size is?
15?
20 plus, yeah, 23 acres.
Is that the
right?
entire site?
Yeah, the entire site.
But the
The
bottom
ballpark
half?
takes up about 6 acres, the stadium, the baseball stadium.
That piece is probably 9 or 10.
It looks more like 10.
This softball field, of course, is much smaller. A major league ballpark would come out, more like this on the outfield, and take up a good portion of this particular multi-purpose field right
The
here.
whole piece is probably about 10 acres.
If we were able to acquire the bowling alley from Rollins, that would provide some parking there, or some type of amenity there.
Is
And
it
then,
almost a 2 acre site, Randy, just a little under 2 acres?
I think it's 1.5 acres, right at 1.5 acres. And so that's, it's one thing we haven't mentioned is the team, the minor league baseball team owner desires to get here as soon as possible, and they were on a track to try to begin the spring 2015 season in the new ballpark. That's a very tight time frame at this point. It's doable, but this site probably maybe one of the quickest sites we could deliver, but there's less involvement with other developers and things, so the delta has to be raised more on the city side of where the money's coming from to build the stadium. All right, so the third site.
Would you mention that both that site and the Rollins site are in the CRA?
That's a great point. Yeah, both this site and the Rollins existing site are in the boundaries of our CRA, which does add additional funding opportunities, both with the TIF money in the future as well as some existing funds on hand. Now this next site, going north of the village here, and we'll back out just a little bit to take in the whole site first. Now this is Lee Road coming into 1792 where it dead ends. This is Webster to the south and Denning to the east. So this is we're looking at the entire block here. Much of this property has been acquired by UP Development, a gentleman by the name of Scott Fish out of Nashville. You may have heard he's acquired the Fashion Square Mall and is redeveloping that site, and he's got a lot of projects going on in the Central Florida area. This is future location of the Whole Foods that has been talked about. He's acquired the Dodge site, the Corporate Square site, the Genius property that's back right in the middle here, and he's got ongoing negotiations with several of these other properties. The southeast corner of this is the Votech property. And Mr. Fish is interested in bringing the stadium within his development somewhere. We've been in talks with him, and he's somewhat excited about the project. It's got to make sense for him. The disadvantage of this site is it's not in the CRA. The CRA ends at Webster here. I believe it takes on like this corner or something, but
I'm
so.
sorry, Randy, I'm totally just wondering this area, which street is which?
All right, can you see the little hand moving?
Yeah.
All right, that's Lee Road coming in, this is
Oh,
1792.
okay, I got it now.
And then that's Webster, and again, the village is just to the
Yeah,
south here.
There's your house right over there.
And Ravidage is over here.
By those houses.
That's right, find Owen's house.
One of your house on the
Randy,
map.
when you talk about the CRA, and the funding, can you just give us some dimension in terms of what that means for consideration on the project?
The CRA has a capacity to bond about $5 million towards the project, and it has about $1 million of reserves that could go to the project if the CRA board voted to do so. So it's about $6 million towards the project that, and one thing we haven't talked about yet is what's the cost of the project. The project's somewhere in the $15 to $21 million range. And that range is based on whether it's 2,500 seats or 3,500 seats.
Is that land?
And that's without land. And then the land cost then is on top of that. It's just the stadium cost.
And are there any restrictions on the 5 and the 1 in terms of the CRA? So can you go towards general usage for the project, or does it have to be specified?
Dory, there are some restrictions, but generally speaking, it can go towards the project, and it can go towards the project without any restrictions. We had talks with the county about it, and within our existing CRA plan, they don't believe we'd need a modification of the plan to allow it to go towards the stadium.
We need an extension of time.
We might need an extension of
We
time.
would need to extend the CRA out probably an additional 5 years to be able to get the participation between the county and the city for the $5 million. So it's really 2.5 each is how it breaks down. We've talked to the county about what the $5 million could go to, as long as it were more stadium improvements rather than just a general parking garage that would go somewhere. That would really be an area that they've expressed, but we think that if there's also the other side of that argument would be if it goes to a garage. And that was originally what we were chatting with Rollins when Rollins was in the game. Rollins was going to build a stadium and we were going to participate, and then we felt we needed to look at a garage. So at this point, it would have to cover the site of the stadium site. We don't, from earlier discussions with Orange County, we don't believe that there would be restrictions on how we use that if that was the direction the CRA agency and the county wanted to go.
Do those costs include any garage structure or any
No.
allotment for parking?
No.
Some surface.
Surface parking, but not,
And how does that 5 million or 6 million translate? Any estimates on the return to the CRA? Like, any increase?
Could we do it? Yes. I mean, we could do it roughly. It's right now it looks like it's an additional 1.2 million bondable each year, and that's currently what our current debt service is. So that would, our debt load is. So it wouldn't necessarily change that, but.
Are you asking Patrick what TIF would be generated by a stadium? Not much. I mean, it would be a taxable stadium for the purposes of the minor league team using it. It might be, I'm not sure how the percentage would work because part of it isn't a nonprofit college using it also. So, but it would be a taxable stadium. But stadiums aren't typically high tax value on the tax rolls, so it's not going to generate a lot of TIF out of that project itself. Now, the spin-off development around it could certainly generate some additional TIF. And all the projections Dory's talking about is if there were no growth between now and 2027, which we obviously believe there'll be growth within the CRA during that time. So the additional 5 years would spin off more money than just net needed for the debt service.
Just back to my parking question for a second. Are we thinking about surface parking here, structured parking? Does it matter from site to site? And you're going to have to allot some dollars for that, even if you're parking on surface, you're using land.
Right.
And none of these sites are, what I anticipate the land value, if you were assigning a land value for the city property, are cheap.
Right. In this particular site, we are looking at whether or not, and Mr. Fish has been in conversations with the school board about acquiring the VOTEC property and where the VOTEC could go. And so that, one of the disadvantages of this site is that hurdle still has to be met. But they show, his latest plan has the stadium generally somewhere in this area with structured parking right here on the south side.
How many parking spaces in the structure do you think? Is that $20,000 stall?
Right. They can build it for 12 a stall, but
Well, you're going to want to clad in there, just like you did the Rollins building.
Sure.
At an increased cost, 12 is a base number.
uh,
You're going with 12?
but it's parking, it's parking then that could help serve his overall development. 70, like I say, 70 nights a year would be needed for the stadium, but then it could serve this entire area, which he's got several things in here, including a potential big box type store on the north end. So, but you're right, those costs do not include a garage when I say 15 to 21 million. And that's why partnering with a developer that needs parking also, and they're willing to put some of their own money towards the overall project, it adds some funding opportunities. In some cases, it adds some cost also. So that's part of what over the next 35 days at this point, or 38 days at this point, we're going to be spending trying to flesh out some of those details. Which I realize when we're asking you for advice, that we don't have all these answers yet, it makes it a big challenge on your part. One of the things that you may have already heard that'll be coming to the commission potentially in February is a discussion of Lee Road punching through to Denning. It's on the DOT's long-term plan. It's on the Metro Plan Orlando's long-term plan. It's on the books for about a $16 million project, and the developer's been asked to do that as part of getting a entrance at the Lee Road entrance into his development. So if you picture a baseball stadium here or here and Lee Road punching through, you have great visibility, great access to the stadium. So that's one of the real advantages of this site.
I'm sorry, you're saying that's coming from the commission?
No, it's coming before the commission in February to discuss the Lee Road coming through. And
whose decision is that? I mean, you're saying if DOT wants it, who makes that decision?
That's a great question. The DOT could do it without our permission. I mean, they could condemn it and do it. Chances are they wouldn't.
So they're looking for the support of.
Right, they would want the support of the city commission. They could do it without us, but they would probably want the support of the commission. They wouldn't want the commission fighting against them on it.
Talk about the developer and his obligation to the DOT, a traffic obligation, or the city imposed obligation.
It's a DOT imposed obligation.
Really neither. I mean, DOT wants to punch through has wanted to punch through there long before the developer was at the
Before I was born. I
Yeah,
didn't know in terms of this discussion.
I think it's just coming up as a good opportunity now that it's moving up in their work plan and there's a developer who wants to develop.
The
Regardless of baseball or not.
Right, it's got nothing to do with baseball.
The DOT issue has nothing to do with the development and nothing to do with baseball.
Right.
It just so happens that that site could be powerful.
He wants access
Lee Road.
at the traffic light at Lee Road. And they said, well, if you want that, then you have to punch it through, basically is.
And the issue for Metro Plan is the Webster 1792 Lee Road interchange, whatever you want to call that.
Malfunction junction.
Is a malfunction junction.
I don't know about solution.
I mean, that's what DOT wants to solve, yeah, I'm not
Correct.
sure the solutions are great.
Right.
So would
But
the
in terms
would the T end up at Denny?
I'm
The
sorry.
T would end up at Denny. Now, whether it goes straight through or curves and does something slightly different, you know, still to be determined, but yes, it would end up
And that's
at
from its
Denny.
own issues.
Right.
Right, right. The developer, I mean, do you know any about his opinion at this point about the punch through? Is he sort of, he's acknowledging that's potentially desirable?
Correct.
I don't know if he acknowledges his desire, but he knows it's gonna happen. Or he knows, let me say this right, I think it's safe to say he knows FDOT's desire and interest in making it happen.
Right.
And he's done a traffic study, which staff has, and that we're reviewing. We've sent it out to our consultant, DOT's looking at it, showing the extension of the road all the way through to Denny and what the impacts would be. So we're gonna have that to report back to the city commission when they hear the item.
And he has enough land today to at least get the intersection without the punch through. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right.
Randy, one more question. Does that timing of that project align with the potential timing of a baseball site on this property?
Yes. Now, again, meeting that 2015 opening day is a challenge on any of these sites. You know, we're, 14, 15 months away from opening day right now, and, you know, if we had the plans and ready to go, it would still be tight. So it's going to be, so, we've talked to the owner about, does he have a backup plan if, you know, the stadium's delivered in the middle of the season or the next year, and so that's something they're looking at.
And back to the CRA, where is that line fall?
The CRA boundary,
No, none of the property.
none of the property where the potential stadium would go is in the CRA. The CRA comes down Webster, it cuts in and takes on a couple of these properties,
Yeah.
takes on the corner of Ravidage where the L House is, and the Kmart's not in, right? Or the Kmart is in.
No,
Kmart is not in,
not.
so it comes back down, you know, basically 1792.
Actually, the corner where Fleming's is and Wawa is in, and then
Okay.
it punches out, and then it catches the Olive Garden, and then it goes straight down 1792. So Kmart is out, most of the UP development is out, Votech is out, and most of Rapidash is out.
Right.
No way, our county, that's,
Nah.
okay.
All right, so that site, next site obviously is Ravidage, which is basically this entire property that for some reason looks brown in this picture, but we've been in discussion with Mr. Bellows. He's interested in the stadium coming to his site, and the acquisition of the land is where we're in negotiations, you know, whether the city can put in some infrastructure to acquire the land, and that, you know, those are the types of things we're looking at. The advantage of this site, again, is good access and visibility. It's not in the CRA, but it is in the CDD that the commission approved, so that potentially offers some bonding opportunities, but, you know, it comes with its own complications also. There are some pockets, and you try to carve out a 6-acre site in here somewhere. You know, he has several donut holes that he does not own, and it's hard to put a 6-acre anything in there without one of those donut holes having to be filled or acquired. So, you know, that's one of the challenges of this site. I talked with the Ford people there. They were not interested in selling. That would be a great spot for a stadium, even though it's in Maitland.
So all of Rapidash and Winter Park?
No, the city limit line runs like right along here, cuts up to Monroe, and some of the properties facing Monroe on the south side are in Maitland. So, yes, here is Monroe. So all this part of Ravidage up here is in Maitland, and just a small part of this right here is in Maitland. There's like 50 acres on the Winter Park side and another 30 or so acres, 26 acres or something on the Maitland side, I believe.
The economic study, was there any numbers on who visits these parks, like from a radius of 1, 3, 5, 10, 25? Who does it draw?
It draws primarily local, you know, from the local area. I don't know if I don't recall what it said about how far people would drive to a single A baseball game. It's not a huge radius. It's way less than 50 miles. And the way professional baseball works is I'm learning. I'm quoting things I know nothing about at this point, but each owner has like a 50-mile radius that's their territory. So any new team that's moving within 50 miles of another team has to have their permission, and
It's a local draw.
it's a local draw.
So it's probably 10, 15 miles.
Right.
So this is single A, not double A?
This is single A. It's called high A. I guess it's within single A, there's a low A and a high A, and this is high A. It's the Florida State League.
And this is the team from Florida?
Yes.
And what has their historic attendance been the last 3 or 4 years?
About 1,500 a game is their average attendance, and one of the reasons they want to move the team here is they believe that would increase in this region. The Orlando metropolitan area, we're told, is the largest metropolitan area in the country without professional baseball. So if you look at the league-wide attendance, the two top draws, it's the Clearwater team is, I think it's around 2,800, 2,700 a game, and Daytona is right at 2,500 a game. And then the bulk of them are in that 1,200 to 1,800 a game range.
And how many games? How many home games?
70 home games.
And how much of a requirement does the minor league team have on the facility beyond the 70 games in terms of venue evenings left over?
That part's all negotiable, whether that would be all city
What
owned.
about practice and training and PT and stuff like that? Are they using the stadium just for on game days, or are they using the stadium?
They use it for practice during the day,
So
not in the evening. So
the study talked about other uses potentially, but I mean,
Right.
how much utilities left by the time you get done negotiating with the amenities, I guess?
yeah, quite a bit. And Rollins, I believe, has roughly 35 home games, I believe it is. So you throw that on top, you're at roughly 100 nights a year just for baseball. But most evenings are open the rest of the year because they practice during the day when they practice.
So Rollins would have a separate practice facility then?
No, they would practice there also.
We would be interested in talking about a lease arrangement with Rollins to use
Right.
our stadium, which would be a separate lease.
But I think
from
Rollins games are played
Rollins.
primarily before the EA season starts too.
Yes,
They run the seasons.
Different seasons.
February, March.
they overlap a little bit, but that with the scheduling.
They have spring and fall ball, right, Rollins?
Mhm.
Right.
Maybe you should see, because they practice 12 months a year. That would be the question, I guess,
Right.
utilization for
Yeah.
college.
And this is very common where there's a pro team and a college team sharing these stadiums. So it's and then there's the Wood Bat League that we'd certainly be interested in. That goes on during the summer league. That wouldn't pay a lot of money into the stadium, but we have the Diamond Dogs here that we'd certainly love to keep in the community. All right, so
Just, I know this is a little off question, but where do they house all their personnel? And these are,
it would be within the facility. There would be office
Like
space.
where they sleep at night, you mean?
is there a dorm set up?
Oh, no.
They use apartments.
They use apartments and hotels for the home team, and the visiting team obviously stays in a hotel when they come. But the player typically is responsible for finding his own place to live in minor league baseball. So they help them with arrangements, but they typically have to find their own place to live. And just quickly to show you the tree farm site. This is the former tree farm. it's about 13, 14 acres. Is where the youth sports fields would likely be moved if we built at the Lake Island Park or Martin Luther King Park site. It will have access off of Monroe. We've looked at the potential of bringing access off of Lee Road through this driveway that goes back and serves all of these condos and apartments back here. So,
They're putting a ball field there.
well, we've looked at that. Most people that have seen that design feel like it would be, the neighborhood impact might be too much. It's certainly big enough. It's like I said, it's 13, 14 acres. You can build a stadium, have surface parking. But you know, this visibility is poor. The access is not fantastic. You know, when you're trying to bring 1,000 cars in there for game time up this driveway would, you know, be somewhat of a challenge. It could be done.
So Randy, you're talking about the MLK youth fields being moved there. Who utilizes the MLK fields now? What type of organizations? Is it the Y and organizations from outside of Winter Park?
Yes, primarily the regional soccer league, Central Florida Youth Soccer, whatever it is, that schedules fields all over the region. So I know when my kids played, we always ended up in Winter Springs. So you know, it's not that league.
Not allegiance to Winter Park. They would be thrilled to have fields.
That's correct. That league is not, you know, your team. You know, if you're the Winter Park team, you know, you're not necessarily playing there. I mean, if you live in Winter Park, the Winter Park does a youth football that is primarily Winter Park kids, many of which come from the Housing Authority project that's right here. So in some ways it would be a benefit to them from living right there.
And would
there are some
fields
across.
be enhanced? Are there more opportunities for fields?
There's more opportunities for fields there, but
And that's on our capital improvement plan to do, that has been on our plan for
right. It's been on
as long as
the
I've been mayor, so that's something that we.
it's been on the 6th year of our 5-year capital plan for a long time, but it's now within the 5-year capital plan.
Can I ask, why isn't it tree farm anymore? I mean, what's it? It's been
Well,
farmed.
because years ago.
I don't need the long story. I'm just saying, is there a hurdle there to say we're taking out the tree farm?
Well, there's a perception issue maybe, but years ago we found that it was much cheaper to buy trees and you get and buy grade A trees from a nursery than to try to grow your own grade A trees and harvest them.
Our urban forestry management plan has gotten greatly improved over the last 2 years, and 5 or 8 years before that, it was languishing.
But we would plant trees out there, and you know, you're watering them, you're taking care of them, and then, you know, they don't all become grade A trees. And so we determined a long time ago it was way less expensive to just buy them at a tree nursery and have them delivered than it was to try to grow our own. So the trees that were left there grew up, and they're too big to harvest now or relocate now unless you really spend a lot of money.
I'd like to make a comment about the question about the park. I've encountered this in many other cities that we've worked in. And this is a question that gets asked all the time. Who uses our park? And this is, whether it's a pro comment or a negative comment. But in general, if you look at park activities in any jurisdiction, you're going to find that the local government spends an awful lot of money, and 75% of the usage is not local. And we probably encountered some of that in different subject, different work, like on a dog park, for example. When they park park, and fundamentally a lot of other people use it. That's a very common misperception about who pays versus who uses all kinds of parking.
Central Park. Central Park.
Yeah, and it's
Sidewalk Arts Festival coming up.
yeah.
We don't have 300,000 citizens in the park. So obviously there are people from outside.
Can we talk a little bit about the actual capital stack on the cost, assuming that it's between $15 and $20 million in X land and X parking? I'm gathering that each site has different opportunities to stack the capital, but I mean, can you explain to us what the city is looking to contribute, what the ball owner is looking to contribute? And then can you talk a little bit about the, who owns it and the maintenance of it and the maintenance standard that would be required?
And the answer to that varies by site
And by contract.
and by contract. The city, under most of these options, the city would own the land and potentially the stadium once we're done. Obviously, on the Martin Luther King Park site, we would own, probably own both. I mean, and then lease it to the teams. In some of these other locations where we, it's our desire to own the land, but that's all negotiable. So we'd be adding at the UP development site or the Rapidash site, we'd be adding roughly 6 acres of parkland to the city's park supply as part of this. As far as where's the money coming from, where we stand today, the team is willing to front $2 million towards the stadium. Rollins, in some initial discussions, is willing to lease within the stadium, which that money could be either bonded or pay back the money that the city.
What's the rate of lease?
We don't have that finalized. It's somewhere in the $125,000 a year range would be our guess. 120?
No, for 20 years.
For 20 years.
So that's fine.
That would be bonded. So, and then, whether the CRA is involved or not, it's where that $5 to $6 million of CRA money comes in or not. If it's on city-owned land, it is possible to go down the tourist development tax route and ask for some of that funding, but if you go down that route, you're certainly not going to beat that 2015 deadline. So that's probably a 6-month process just to go through and ask for that. And then the ongoing revenues of the stadium is potentially bondable, and how that's allocated to the operation, where the team's getting a portion of that, obviously doing a portion of that, so all that's still part of the negotiating.
Any discussions with the state? There's some state funds available.
This been in discussion with the state. Now, the state's money is for spring training in baseball. They don't have a pot of money for minor league baseball, but we are in discussion with the state of some different opportunities for the different sites for how to get money towards this project.
So if you look, for example, at the Fairbanks site, and those of you who've driven on Fairbanks know that west of 1792 to I-4, we've done a great job. We have a choke point, I would describe it, from 1792 to Denny. That still is a state road today, am I correct?
Correct.
So I mean, that's an opportunity for state improvements on something that could help acquire right of way or whatever we might be able to do to enhance our purpose. Mark, you asked another question. The typical minor league deal in all of these is the minor league team maintains the fields, et cetera, and that's at their cost. So they may maintain the stadium, they may maintain the field, et cetera.
The talks at this point have been that they would operate the stadium year-round, even for the Rollins games and any other games that are there. They would operate it.
They would staff it too?
Yes.
So would part of the Rollins lease payment go to them?
Under that scenario, yes.
So how much would come to the city on?
And that's all what we're trying to negotiate to make this work.
But that's more mathematics than negotiation.
It is.
How much of it will fall to the city?
Right.
Is that typical structure where the town would, or the city would own the stadium for minor league, or does it depend on what level of minor league? I know that with 10 or 12 teams in this league, at least. All municipalities own them?
It's a lot of different, it's a mix. Primarily the local government owns the stadium.
Right. And usually the teams maintain.
Right. In some cases, there are some where the municipality tries to maintain it. I don't particularly want to be in the maintenance business. Rollins maintains their stadium now, so they could, you know, it could really be either one of them. But most likely it would be the Miami Stadium, and that's what all of our discussions so far, they want to maintain it, because they have a certain level they want it, you know, maintained too.
Would maintenance include CapEx over the age?
That's a great question. It certainly would include, you know, paying the electric bill and all of that. With CapEx.
John, I believe all of the stadiums, I don't know the ownership of the Tampa Stadium. I think well, I do know the ownership. I believe all of the stadiums are city or county, municipally owned in some way. I don't think there's any private stadium. I think the only private stadium in the state really right now is the Disney Field. I think the rest are county, city. I don't know.
On the Rollins thing, so they're not talking about making any capital contributions at the moment, so even if we move their operation from the existing facility, that leaves that field either vacant or substitutable for some other use. How does that fit into this program at all? As far as this movement?
Right. What Rollins would like to do, and has talked about doing, is they want a lacrosse field, so that site would likely become their lacrosse stadium as well as the Lady softball stadium on that site.
So, in effect, we're providing them